Rebel Yellow Brick Roads, We Go Out of Our Way presents The Young Southpaw Part of an Hour. Ding! Remember Spuds Mackenzie? The dog from the 80s Budweiser commercials? The, quote, original party animal, end quote. If that helps. I mean, if not, just know they tried to use a dog in sunglasses and Hawaiian shirts to sell beer in the late 80s. Now, I have known some party animals in my day, and they were not all as well-mannered as old Spuds. Usually a lot of carnage involved. I mean, maybe that was happening off camera. I do not know. Now, the thing is, I've been getting confused, as to why old Spuds Mackenzie wasn't in Wilson Phillips. And then I remembered that Mackenzie Phillips, Mackenzie is her first name. And then I remembered that Mackenzie Phillips wasn't in Wilson Phillips. She was on One Day at a Time, So why wasn't Spuds Mackenzie on One Day at a Time? Well, I guess the answer's the same. It's her first name, And I don't even know if that dog's name was Spuds Mackenzie. I mean, actors are always taking stage names and whatnot. And why wasn't it Suds Mackenzie if we're talking about beer? I mean, what do potatoes have to do with it? Like Tina Turner almost sang. And it probably was a fake identity too, because that dog was a female. But portrayed as a male, the misogyny of the 1980s. Kind of like, well, I guess no. I guess it's the opposite of, like, Lady Stardust, And then Bowie made Diamond Dogs a couple albums later. Seems odd that Spuds Mackenzie was never in Bowie's band. Locking in the groove with Carlos Alomar, I mean, I know dogs age differently than us humans. So maybe spanning both Bowie's 70s band and Wilson Phillips might have been a little too much for old Spuds. But I mean, have we ever really looked into the idea that dogs are capable of time travel? That they already possess that technology? They're just not overly showy about it, And like, because of dog years, do they time travel quicker than humans? I mean, they were in space before us. Surely, to the human ego, that's the real space oddity. And heck, could have been Zig Sputnik, Because, like, if you're the original party animal and you're at the height of your fame, you gotta think, if time travel's a possibility, you're going to want to go party with Bowie. hanging out during the pin-up sessions, you know. Bowie's all painting the Aladdin Sane makeup on Spuds' face. She's loving it, of course, you know. This is exactly why she went back in time in the first place. Bowie's all suddenly getting ideas for his next album, what will become Diamond Dogs, you know. Iggy's probably around, I wanna be your dog, you know. Playing early versions of China Girl, which both of them would record. Both Iggy and Bowie, I know of no recordings Spuds did of any Iggy Pop material. But this is probably giving Spuds some ideas of her own. I mean, you know, China Phillips was the Phillips of Wilson Phillips. Oh, whoa, a lot of Phillips in that sentence. I almost passed out. But I know what you're thinking. Hold on. How is this gonna work? But I mean, there's always the trio of women singing in those Bud commercials. Kind of like Wilson Phillips. And Spuds is a drummer in one of those ads. And all right, you're probably now saying to yourself, Spuds first appeared in that 1987 Super Bowl ad. 1987, a good 2 years after Roth had left Van Halen, obviously. I mean, people were just trying to cope any way they could, you know? Having dogs sell beer on national television. But like Mackenzie Phillips, one day at a time, also featured Valerie Bertinelli, who would go on to marry Eddie Van Halen. Woo! Atomic Punk, Atomic Dog, you know? I mean, yeah, let's get George Clinton involved. I mean, a supergroup of, well, all of Van Halen, George Clinton, Wilson Phillips, and Spuds Mackenzie on auxiliary percussion would just be amazing. I mean, in many ways, Van Halen picked up from where the Beach Boys left off, you know? The sound of sunny California, those backing vocals. I mean, Pet Sounds and VH's Hide Your Sheep tour. I mean, now that I think about it, if Spuds is time traveling and also has her eye on joining Wilson Phillips, there's no way she's going to pass up an opportunity to be on Pet Sounds. I mean, there's so much academic research on that album. Has anyone spotted this yet? Well, I guess we don't even know what dogs use to time travel in. I doubt it'd be like a British phone box, you know, parked outside of Brian Wilson's studio. I mean, at that point in the 80s, Doctor Who was not held in the highest acclaim, you know? Unless, like, Spuds switched up her means of conveyance while she was hanging out with Bowie. You know, back in the 70s, saw Pertwee and was like, this dude's all right. I mean, if he ever wants to join Wilson Phillips, he'd be a shoo-in with that cape. So back in the 70s, Spuds decides to adopt the traditional phone box to head even further back in time to Beach Boys HQ, while at the same time inspiring the future idea for Canine. Woo! I mean, I wonder what Spuds would have made of Tom Baker's doctor, you know, what with that scarf, you know, and Spuds being used to the Southern Californian sun. And speaking of the sun, coming out from behind storm clouds, you know, 1990 seemed to be the year where pop stars' children were making records. Because along with Wilson Phillips, Nelson released After the Rain, There's that dog Nelson too and all those memes. I mean, not in 1990, of course. I mean, what even were memes back then? But like, whoa! 1990, the Replacements put out All Shook Down! With 2 dogs on the cover. Spuds and Leica, maybe. Out on the street looking like indeed raindrops had just been falling on their heads. I mean, I don't know if Paul Westerberg was referring to Spuds when he named that album All Shook Down. But I mean, it was the year after Spuds retired. I mean, certainly having lived a long and fulfilling life. Time traveling, hanging out with Bowie and the Beach Boys, all the bees, you know, just like Budweiser. Spuds was around for those first 6 Van Halen albums. I mean, you can't ask for much more. Well, I mean, I guess joining Wilson Phillips, you know. But I mean, who knows if that was even on Spuds' own agenda? And not some mere projection that we as a society have imposed on this dog.